Bang. Continue. I'll let you unmute yourselves if you want to.
Okay, it's recording now.
Fabulous. Fabulous. Okay. So there's a few things that happen. There's a few things that disorders that people have that lead them into strange areas of research and halakha and all sorts of strange ideas. And one of those is called ADHD. You may have heard of it, attention deficit and hyperactivity disorder. And basically what happens is that you get a worm inside your head somewhere in here, and you can't get rid of it until you go and research and you know absolutely everything about it. And you can drive yourself mashuggah going looking for things. So I got a worm inside my head a few weeks ago, and I expended a large amount of time and effort trying to understand what was going on. And the worm was this. I'll explain it to you. I wanted to know whether Yaakov and Eisav were identical twins or not. Are they identical twins or are they fraternal twins? It's a good question because, they're twins. We learn about them in the Torah. We hear about them all the time. So I wanted to know, are they identical? So then I decided to go and research what identical twins actually are. And then I had a whole look in lots of different Jewish sources to find out whether these two characters, our father Yaakov and his dodgy brother Eisav, were identical or not. So if you don't know how this works, identical twins come from a single fertilized egg, which then divides, and fraternal twins are when two eggs are fertilized and then they're given birth to the same thing. So the identical twins are identical in their DNA. They have identical DNA. And fraternal twins do not. They're like just normal siblings that just happen to be born in very short and close proximity to each other, and their gestation period is at the same time. So we have to ask the question now. Whenever I ask people, what do you reckon? If I'd ask you, what do you reckon? Are they identical or not? Everyone will say no. Of course they're not identical, because we read in the Torah. We read in the Torah all about them. So let's have a look. Let's have a look at the Torah itself and see what the Torah actually says, and we can get involved in it. This is where we first meet these two characters, Yaakov and Eisav. So here we are. Ve'ele told Yitzchak ben Avraham, Abraham Yitzchak. Very, very nice. All right, okay, fine. Here we go. Rivka becomes pregnant. Here we go. Verse 21. She didn't have any children. You can see it here in the English as well. Rivka becomes, she conceives, she gets pregnant. The children started struggling in her womb. And she said, if this is the case, why? What's the point? She didn't know what was going on. Obviously, in those days, 4,000 years ago, they didn't have ultrasound scanners, and therefore she didn't know what was going on. The Rashi quotes the Medrash, and she went past the Avodah Zarah, she went past the idolatry, and the baby wanted to get out, and she went past the shul and the Bet Midrash, and the baby wanted to get out, and so she was worried. The baby was confused. There's a very funny Hasidic joke about it, but it's not appropriate. The Litvisher people in the room may get offended, so I'm going to tell jokes about Litvaks. But anyway, she says, "What's going on here? I don't know what's going on. How can it be?" So she asks Hashem. Hashem. She goes and asks Hashem. Hashem says, "There's two nations, right? You've got twins. Of course it's going to be different. It's twins." So she knows now. This is her ultrasound scan from Hashem. Hashem tells her that she's having twins. So were they going to be identical twins or not? Well, it seems to be that they're not. Why? You've got two different nations, and two different powers, two different powers. Different nations will come. They'll be different. One will be mightier than the other. These two, they're going to be different. So it seems to be that they are supposed to be fraternal twins, not the same. And if we have a look at the next verses, we see that they look different. Vayetze harishon admoni kulo ka'aderet se'ah. The first one comes out and he's red, right? He has a lot of hair. He's got a lot of hair. Vayikru shmo Eisav, and they called him Eisav. Va'achrechen yatsa achiv, and then his brother emerges. V'yado chezet ba'akev Eisav, and his hand is holding onto the ankle. So all we know is that Eisav is red and hairy, and Yaakov is holding on to Esav's ankle. It seems to be that Eisav is described differently because he looks different to Yaakov, but we don't have a lot of information as to what Yaakov looks like. All we have is, from the Torah, is that Yaakov is holding on to his ankle. Okay, then we see Vayigdulu Anarim. They grow up. Eisav is a hunter. Yaakov Ishtam. He's a wholesome person. He lives in a tent. Okay. Rav Hirsch says, and he argues that these twins are identical twins, and he brings a few different arguments. He says, first of all, let's have a look at verse 24 over here. It was a time to give birth. And behold, she had twins in her womb. Now, Rav Hirsch asks a question, and he says, why is the word vehine used? Behold. It's not a shock to her that she's having twins, because in the previous verse, in the previous pasuk, Hashem said to her, you're going to have twins. So why does the word vehine need to be used? Vehine means behold. It denotes some sort of a surprise. So the fact that she was surprised, says Rav Hirsch, was that she was expecting them to be different. She was expecting them to be fraternal twins, and they weren't fraternal twins. They were identical twins. They were identical twins, says Rav Hirsch. Rabbeinu Bechaya says another thing. He points to another idea, and he says, if we go earlier in verse number 22, here we go. The children were struggling in the womb. Rabbeinu Bechaya says that, of course, they had to be identical twins, because if they weren't identical, if they were fraternal twins, they wouldn't be able to fight with each other, because fraternal twins are in separate amniotic sacs. They're separate. They're completely separate from each other. They have no ability to fight. They have no knowledge of the other one even being there. They have a separate placenta. They're completely separate, those two, the fraternal twins. The fact that they were able to fight, Rabbeinu Bechaya says, shows that they were identical twins. They couldn't be fraternal twins, otherwise they wouldn't be able to fight. The same thing is the same story as how he was born, Yaakov was born holding on to the foot of Eisav. If they were fraternal twins, they wouldn't have been together. They would have been completely separate. So they wouldn't be able to be to fight, and wouldn't be able to touch each other. So therefore, Rabbeinu Bechaya and the Rav Hirsch, Rav Shimshon Rav Hirsch, both seem to rule in various other areas as well, that showing that these two are identical twins. So how then do we explain the fact that Eisav is bright red and Yaakov is not? So this was bothering me a lot. And then I found the answer to it, something very, very interesting, a very rare condition. And it happened to be that on the Thursday before Parshat Toldot, we have in our community, we're very blessed to have in our community a consultant neonatologist. He's the senior consultant neonatologist in Perth Children's Hospital, Dr. Stephen Resnick. He's also a Moyle, and he's a very, very good guy. And he had a case on the Thursday of Parshat Toldot of something called twin transfusion syndrome. Twin transfusion syndrome is when one of the twins, it can only happen in identical twins, and one of the twins takes a larger amount of blood from the placenta, and the other twin doesn't get as much blood. And he had a case of this on the Thursday. He said that one twin, he said, this is a picture from a blog. You can have a look at this. These are identical twins, right? One is bright red and one is pale, right? This is a twin transfusion syndrome. It's a very rare condition. He had a case of this on the Thursday itself, and he said that the one baby was born so pale, they gave him a blood transfusion as soon as he was born because they were worried he might die. And the other one was born bright red. So it's this syndrome, this very rare condition can only happen in identical twins. So it seems to be the hairy thing I've not quite reconciled, but Rav Hirsch and Rabbeinu Bachaya are the only people who actually comment on this, and the fact that this twin transfusion syndrome is a possibility seems to point towards the fact that these twins, Yaakov and Eisav, are identical twins. Okay, so that's very nice. I wasted a whole week researching this. And now the worm inside my brain is satisfied, and I can go on and point my attention deficit disorder towards something more useful for my time. But when I should explain to people who don't know some of my background, the other part of my professional life is psychology. I have a master's in psychology. In applied psychology, and I'm very interested in human beings and things like that. So then, what I looked into after this idea of whether these two are identical or not was the idea as to whether it actually matters. Does it matter whether or not they're identical? And that opens the question. That opens the question in Jewish thought of nature versus nurture. So are we affected more by our nature, or are we affected by our nurture? Because over here we have two identical twins growing up in the same house. We do see a bit of discrepancy in their growing up, because we have here in verse 28 about Yitzchak favored Eisav and Rivka favored Yaakov. So we do see a bit of difference in the upbringing, but I want to look now into the idea in the Jewish philosophy and Jewish understanding of the battle between nature and nurture, and which one is more effective and more important for us as Jewish people, and what we should be focusing on. So if we have a look at Yaakov, let's look at Yaakov in particular, because we don't have a lot of information about Eisav. We have him in a couple of stories. Yaakov, we have him a lot. But let's look at the first two stories we have of Yaakov. Here we go. Verse 29, it follows straight on. Vayazed Yaakov nazid. Yaakov, he cooked himself a stew. He was cooking a stew. Vayavo Eisav min hasadeh hu ayef. Eisav came from the field. He was tired. Vayomer Eisav el Yaakov, haliteini na min ha'adam adam hazeh ki ayef anochi. Please, can I give me some of this red stuff, this stew that you're making? It's lentils. I'm very tired. Al Kain Karoshma Edom, therefore they called him Edom because he was obsessed with red things. So Yaakov sees his opportunity, right? What does Yaakov want more than anything else? He wants the birthright. So he sees his opportunity. Vayomer Yaakov, and Eisav is tired, he's hungry, he's had enough. Yaakov says, Michra kayom et bechorat chali, sell me the birthright, right? Eisav says, I'm about to die. I'm famished. I'm going to die. I don't care about the birthright. So Yaakov takes he takes the birthright of Eisav. He takes this opportunity. He takes an opportunity to grab whatever he can. Right? So it seems to be that Yaakov by nature is someone who takes advantage of opportunities that are put before him and is able to grab them. Okay, that's the first story of Yaakov. We're going to skip forward a bit until the next time we meet Yaakov, which is over here. Where are we? Here we go. We're going to the next chapter. Vayihi ki zaken Yitzchak. It was when Yitzchak became old, right? He got old. And he said, I'm going to die. And here it is. I don't know, I'm going to die. I want to bless Eisav. He brings Eisav in, he wants to bless him. He says, now take your gear, your bow, your all your stuff, and go and hunt me something nice to eat. Right? Make all these nice things. I'm going to bless you before I die. Okay, fine. Rivka's listening, and she wants Yaakov to get the blessings. We know this story. So she tells Yaakov like this. I heard your dad speaking. I heard your dad speaking to your brother, and he's going to go and get all these blessings, and he's going to go and do all this. Listen to me, she says. Listen to what I'm telling you. You go and get some. Go to the sheep, the flocks, and go and get me some two nice goats, some good ones, and I'll make the nice food for him. And you'll take it to your dad, and you'll get fed, and he'll get fed, and you'll get the blessings, right? So what does Yaakov do now? Let's pause it here. If we say that Yaakov is someone who is an opportunist, someone who will do anything to get ahead, and someone who by nature is a person who is going to attack these things and take his opportunities when they arise before him and seize anything that he can get, then what should Yaakov say? Yaakov should say, of course I'll do it. I'll go and do it now, no problem. What does he say? He's hairy and I'm not. Maybe my dad will work it out and we're going to get cursed. It's not going to work. Right? What does she say to him? Basically, Rivka says to him, be quiet and listen to what I tell you and just do what I say. Right? So it seems that Yaakov doesn't want to do it. He doesn't want to do it. And Rivka is the one who coerces him almost into going to play this game with his father, dressing up as Eisav, and getting the blessing. So this is a case of Yaakov being affected by nurture. So first of all, we meet Yaakov. His nature is to drive him in one direction. Now he doesn't want to go in that direction. His mother is pushing him. Nurture is pushing him in that direction. So it seems to be that Yaakov, backwards and forwards, is looking at whether it's important for him, his whole, whether we understand as to how nature or nurture is playing a role in his life. And this is important for us to understand, because if it's nature in our life, then we're born with whatever we've got and we have to make do with it. If it's nurture in our life, then we be able to have an effect over it. We'll be able to change what we've got. So the answer as to whether Judaism follows an idea of nature or follows an idea of nurture is, of course, a very rabbinical answer. And the answer is that it's both. It's nature and it's nurture. And the answer is that it doesn't actually matter whether you have been born genetically into a situation that you are, or you've been taught how to be in a genetic situation, into the situation that you are in. Doesn't matter whether you're born into it or you've been taught into it. A person has an obligation to behave himself. And I'm going to show you this from the Torah itself. Now, everybody knows the first verse in the Torah, right? Everyone knows the first pasuk, right? You know it? Yeah, what does it say? Where is it? Why is this not working? Here we go. Here we go. Bereshit bara Elokim et hashamayim v'et haaretz. Don't look at that translation because that's not a direct translation. If we would translate this verse, what would we say? In the beginning, God created heaven and earth. Are we in agreement of that? Yeah, are we in agreement? Right. So for all of those of you who speak Hebrew and understand Hebrew properly, you should all be asking a question on that translation, because the word Bereshit is grammatically incorrect. What is the word? How do you say in the beginning in Hebrew?
Reshit. Reshit.
In the beginning. How do you say in the beginning?
בהתחלה.
בהתחלה or?
בתחילה,
If you're gonna use the shoresh resh aleph shin, how would you say in the beginning?
Bereshit.
You would not. No, Bereshit does not
Why
mean
not?
in the beginning. You would say
Why not?
Barishona. Barishona.
oh, you're right, you're right.
I know I'm right. So grammatically,
Barishana, yeah.
it would be Barishona, right? In the beginning, Barishona, God created heaven and earth, right? That's what it should be. But it doesn't say that. It says Bereshit. And Bereshit means in the beginning of. Right? Bereshit, the beginning of. I don't know. You fill in the word for whatever it is. Bereshit ha'ona, right? Beginning of, right?
Reshit hazmanim.
Yeah. So that means in the beginning of whatever it is. So this is Bereshit, in the beginning of, God created heaven and earth. So Rashi asks the question and says, hang on a second, that doesn't make sense. Right? It doesn't make sense. So it's not grammatically correct. It should be Barishona. So why does it say Bereshit? So Rashi takes apart the word Bereshit. And he takes the word Bereshit, and he takes it like this. Reshit, the word Reshit, when it's used as a noun in the Torah, is there are two things used when that Reshit is used as a noun for in the Torah. One of them is the Torah itself, Reshit, Reshit Chochma Yirat Hashem, right? And the other one is the Jewish people, right? So if we use our biblical Hebrew skills, and this is something I heard in a shiur from Rabbi Lawrence Kellerman, if we use our biblical Hebrew skills like this, and it says Bereshit, in or with, a beit prefix is in or with, in this case it will be with Reshit, God created heaven and earth. Right, so forget in the beginning of. With Reshit, God created heaven and earth. So God created heaven and earth with Reshit. What is Reshit? Well, it could be either the Torah or the Jewish people. It can't be the Jewish people because the Jewish people weren't around when God created heaven and earth. So therefore, it has to be the Torah. The Torah is the template. It's the nature creating tool that Hashem has, that he used to create heaven and earth. So all of the world was created with the Torah as a tool for it. And this is what Rabbi Lawrence Kellerman gives an example of when he talks about nature versus nurture. And he says, this word, Bereshit, the very first word in the Torah, the very first verse in the Torah, precludes a person from saying that you are predisposed genetically to sin. Why? Because if you want to, you're able to change nature. You're able to use the Torah to change nature. So if you let's say I have a genetic predisposition to cruelty, let's say, I don't know, cruelty or I don't know, whatever. Find your particular poison. You have such a thing. You are not allowed to rely on that. You're not allowed to rely on that to say that I'm sorry, I can't be Jewish. I'm out of the question. I'm exiled from the Jewish nation because I'm a cruel person. I've got nothing. There's nothing that I can do about it. There's nothing that I can do about it. It's I'll otherwise be precluded from. Oh, what's gone on here? There we go. Sorry, otherwise be precluded from being part of the Jewish nation. I have to be able to rely on what I can do, and I'm able to change that by studying the Torah and by incorporating Jewish ideas into myself, and I'm able to change my nature. I'm able to change my whole nature. So I can't say that I'm a cruel person by nature. I'm able to change it. Based on this idea of the first pasuk of Bereshit, says like this: with the Torah, Hashem created heaven and earth. If Hashem can create the whole of the universe using the Torah, then we can recreate ourselves using the Torah itself, and we're able to change it. Okay, so that is the nature idea, and we're going to come back to let's do the other nature idea. Another verse which you're probably very familiar with, and if you're not, then you should be. It's over here in the book of Dvarim, chapter 6. Have you seen this one before? Shema Yisrael, right? You've heard this one before, right? If you said it already today, it's past time for Shacharit there. You should have said it by now, right? Okay, we're going to do some more biblical Hebrew over here. Okay, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Va'avta, right? You must love Hashem. B'chol levavcha, b'chol nafshecha, v'chol ma'odecha. What does it say here? With all your heart, all your soul, all your might. Let's do some more. Let's do some more biblical Hebrew. How do you say your heart in Hebrew?
Lev.
Lev is a heart. How do you say your heart?
Libcha.
Levavi.
Libcha. Yeah, libcha is your heart. So why does it say levavcha? So what does levavcha mean? It means your hearts. Now, I don't know if there's any doctors in here, and my dad is not here to answer for himself, but I can tell you that no one has two hearts. You know, and if they have two hearts, then they've got a problem. They've got a bigger problem than the scope of this shiur is able to help them with. Right? So
Yes, it's Lavavcha Shema Yisrael. It's Yisrael. It's not one person. It's not one heart.
No,
It's all
so
of
this is
Yisrael.
this is not talking. This is not talking in the singular. This is talking in the singular. The next paragraph of the Shema is the plural. V'haya im shamoah. That is the plural one. This is the singular one. V'shinantam levanecha, right? Not livnechem, right? This is v'lechtecha b'derech v'shochbecha uvkumecha, right? This is you in the singular.
Yeah, but it's still talking to all of us. It's still Shema Yisrael.
This is the first chapter of the first paragraph of the Shema is in the singular. The second paragraph of the Shema is in the plural. V'haya im shamoah. Otherwise, there wouldn't be any point in having both of them. So this is talking to one person. B'chol levavcha is a problematic word. And again, Rashi goes on this and he quotes the Gemara and he says like this. And he says that you have to serve Hashem with both your good inclination and with your evil inclination, with your Yetzer HaTov and your Yetzer Hara. Right? That's how you have to serve Hashem. So it's a good question as to how. It's very easy to serve Hashem with your Yetzer HaTov. How do you serve Hashem with your Yetzer Hara? Right? How do you serve Hashem with your evil inclination? So the example given is, he says, if someone is a particularly bloodthirsty person, someone's a bloodthirsty person, he likes blood, then he said he should become a sheichet or a moil, and then he'll be able to satisfy his bloodlust for a mitzvah. He turns round his bloodlust and his evil inclination, and he turns it into a mitzvah. So therefore, he's serving Hashem with his evil inclination, right? And this is very important. So therefore, everyone has an evil inclination. Everyone has a genetic predisposition to some sort of sin. But we're able, according to the Shema, we're able to use it, and we are obligated to use it in a way that brings glory to Hashem and brings enhancement to our spirituality. And I saw a wonderful question. Yud Tes Kislev, the Rosh Hashanah for Chasidus. I saw a wonderful thing from Rabbi Mordechai Leib, the Sassover Rebbe, an amazing idea. And he said, you know, we all accept this thing of serving God with your evil inclination. So he said, how can you serve Hashem? How is it possible to serve Hashem with if you've got heresy in your heart? If you disbelieve in Hashem, how can you serve Hashem with that? You know, I understand how you can serve Hashem being bloodthirsty. I can understand how you can serve Hashem being, I don't know, if you're a tight person, if you don't want to lend money to people. I can see how you can serve Hashem in violence, in all many other ways. How do you serve Hashem with your disbelief of Hashem? And he says a beautiful answer, and he says that the only way to serve Hashem in disbelief of Him, he says it's like this. He says when you see someone who needs help, someone sees someone who needs something from you, and if you believed in Hashem perfectly, then you wouldn't help them, because you just say, well, I believe in Hashem, and Hashem will do it for him. The fact that we are able and we're willing to go and help other people is a display of a tiny bit of disbelief in Hashem, and that is us serving Hashem with disbelief. So the fact that we assist and we go out of our way to help other people is also this idea of serving Hashem with our evil inclination as well. So therefore, going back to our point on nature versus nurture, if your nature is a bad thing, if you have a bad nature, you're still able to by hard work, you're still able to turn yourself into a good person and you turn your evil thoughts and your evil ideas into something which is of benefit spiritually. Now, what about nature? What about your nurture? What about your nurture? Are you able to turn your nurture, if you've got a dodgy nurture, are you able to do it if that is no good as well? And for that, we have to look at another very famous part of the Torah from the book of Shemot, chapter 20. And again, you should know this one as well. None of this is very complicated and very arcane ideas. These are all things which are in famous bits of the Torah. It says like this: Hashem spoke all of these words, saying, right? It's the Ten Commandments. I am the Lord your God, you'll have no other gods before me. Now, over here in the second one, you shouldn't make any graven images. All of these things.
Écoute, il y a toute une confrontation entre moi et Nathalie, mais sur son numéro, pas sur le poste.
Let's mute him. Grab him. Okay. So all of these things, you shouldn't make any graven images in the heavens above, in the sea below, anything like that. Lo tishtachaveh lehem, lo, don't bow to them, lo ta'avdeim, don't serve them, don't do anything, don't get involved in all of that. And then there's a very strange part of this pasuk over here. Ki anochi Hashem Elokecha, I am Hashem your God, El Kana, I am, here it says in passion, but jealous it means, Poked avon avot al banim al shlishim v'ribim l'sonai. Right? I visit the guilt of parents on the children, on the third generation and on the fourth generation. So that means that children get in trouble for the sins of their parents. It seems to be, right? And of their grandparents and of their great-grandparents, third and fourth generation. Now that's a problem, isn't it? That's a problem. Aren't you supposed to only get in trouble for the things that you've done wrong? Well, with my father did something wrong and it's not, I didn't do it. Why should I get in trouble? Not only that, the Torah itself says explicitly in Devarim chapter 24 and Deuteronomy chapter 24 over here, and I've got it up here on the screen as well. Lo yumtu avot al banim. Children don't get parents don't get put to death for their children. Uvanim lo yumtu al avot, and children don't get put to death for their parents. Ish bechet al yumatu. Each person, so he's using a death penalty as a particular example, but it means punishment. You only get punished for your own sins. So how can the Torah in the Ten Commandments say that third and fourth generations for people who reject Hashem, they get punished all the way down? How can it be? So I heard a fabulous answer from Rabbi Tovia Singer. If you don't know who Rabbi Tovia Singer is, then you should. Rabbi Tovia Singer is an anti-missionary. He heads outreach Judaism. He was based in Jakarta for a long time near us. He came to Perth to visit us. And he's now back in the land of Israel. And he's the foremost anti-missionary in the Jewish world. He's a superstar expert on the Tanakh, and I wouldn't, if I was going to ask anyone anything about Tanakh, he was the one you want to ask about. He knows the whole thing inside out, back to front, upside down. It's unbelievable. He's got an unbelievably amazing knowledge of Tanakh. And he was asked this question as well. How can it be that Hashem visits the sins upon the second and third and fourth generations? And he says like this. He said, imagine that you have a person who grows up in the house of a murderer, right? He's a murderer. The father is a murderer. And he sees his father sinning and doing all these terrible things and murdering people. And he sees that this is, it's a futile lifestyle. It's not something that a person should be doing, and he knows it's wrong. And then he goes and does the same thing. Then he gets punished extra because he should have learned how not to behave from his father. So this is what he says. A person who grows up in the house of a murderer should know and sees that the person's life comes to nothingness and vanity, should be able to know not to go in the same direction. Now he said, what's the third generation? He said, most people have grandparents. So the same story, right? Let's say you grow up and you realize that your grandfather, God forbid, is a murderer or a rapist or a I don't know, or a Tottenham fan or a Liverpool fan or something like that. And you go in your life and you follow along in the same sins that he follows on. You also get punished for not having learned how to behave for not having learned the lessons of his mistakes as well. Now, what's about the fourth generation? Well, some people, very few people, I was lucky enough to, but some people have great grandparents. And the same thing in your lifetime, you saw your great grandfather, he did such a thing, he did all these sins, and you did exactly the same thing. You carried on his ideas of evil, even though you know, and even though you experience the fact that these things come to nothingness and vanity, then you also get punished for that as well. So it's not because you are getting punished because of their sins. You're getting punished because you didn't learn. You didn't take advantage of your situation. So therefore, if we boil down this whole idea of Yaakov and Eisav and nature versus nurture, the actual answer as to whether it matters or not is it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether your nature is good or your nature is bad, because you still have to do the right thing. You are obligated to better yourself in whatever way that you can. So if you have a bad nature, you're still obligated, as it says in the Shema, to serve Hashem with your evil inclination, or using the idea from Bereshit to change your nature. If you don't like the way, if you understand and you recognize the fact that your nature is causing you trouble, then you must do something about it. It's no good just to sit around and raise your hands up to the sky and complain that everything is going wrong. It doesn't work like that. A person has to put in the effort. A person actually has to do something. It's no, you can't just give in and give up to everything. And the same thing with your nurture, right? So if you grow up in a house of a sinner, or if you grew up in a house of a tzaddik, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you had a good influential parent or bad influential parents. It doesn't matter if you came from a broken home or an unbroken home. It is still incumbent upon you yourself to take responsibility for your own actions and make sure that you're doing the right thing. And the only way to do that, the only way to ensure that you're doing the right thing, is by studying and by learning and listening to shiurim. And nowadays this generation, even though we're struggling with viruses and lockdowns and all manner of unpleasant things, there's never been a generation that has such access to Torah study. It's never happened before. There's thousands and thousands of hours. When I'm in the gym in the morning, I'm listening to shiurim for my Dayanut course, on which the Rav who's teaching us, he uploads, because I can't go to some of the shiurim because they're in the middle of the night for us. And I'm in the gym and I'm on the treadmill and I'm listening to shiurim on YouTube, studying Dayanut on YouTube. Or I'm going for a walk and I've got a podcast on from America and listening to rabbis from America who they don't even know that I exist, but it doesn't matter. I'm still learning Torah from them. And this opportunity that we're having right now, I'm on the other side of the world. I'm in Australia, and I'm able to give a shiur of something that came into my head last week, and otherwise I would never be able to give this shiur. You wouldn't be able to hear this. We are so blessed that we've got archives and so much stuff full of opportunity to study Torah and to improve ourselves, that we have to actually take that opportunity. The problem is that the technology that gives us the opportunity to study Torah also gives us the opportunity to mess around, and also gives us the opportunity to make a mess of everything, and it gives us an opportunity to waste our time, and gives us opportunities to do things that we shouldn't do. And sometimes those things are tempting, especially if you have, if you get led astray like me. I got led astray into trying to work out whether or not these twins were identical or not. But we ourselves, we have the ability to overcome all of these challenges and actually use the situation that we find ourselves in to benefit us. and to improve our lives. So therefore, if we turn around, at the end of the day, and we turn around to Hashem when we pass from this world, and He says to us, what do you do? What do you do in the lockdown? And you tell Him, well, I watched Netflix, and I made sourdough bread. What else did people do? I don't know. We didn't have a lockdown here, so I don't know what. I only know from other people what was going on. But if you see, then you can say that you've wasted your time. But if you've got this opportunity, you've got this technology that is sitting here in front of us, and we utilize it. We utilize it for good, and we utilize it to improve ourselves and to lift ourselves up and drag ourselves into greatness. And that's something which is so important. We can't just sit around waiting for things to happen to us and blaming other situations, our own situation on external factors. My Rabbi is a very wise man, and he's a bit like me. He's a bit off the wall, and he said that the being Jewish and Jewish learning and Jewish philosophy, he said it's like, when you go to the shopping mall, and you have the escalators, right? He said it's like trying to climb the one that's going down. Have you ever done that? It's great fun. I do it with the kids when I go to the shopping center. Me and the children. Liat is very frustrated with me when I do these things, but me and the children, we like to climb the opposite escalator. It's quite good fun. So when my Rebbe explains that Judaism is the same thing. He says, if you stand still, you're going down. You always got to be working, and you got to work hard. You got to work hard just to stay in the place where you are, just to be able to fix yourself in that one place. You've got to always be working, because there's so many forces on the outside that's trying to pull us down and trying to, I've got a meeting, I've got this, I've got that, I'll do it another day. Procrastination, is the biggest killer. And as human beings from a psychological point of view, human beings, we have the desire within us to blame other people for our situation, because it's easy. It's easy. We find our way. We find our difficulties, and we say, it's too bad. This happened to me, and therefore I'm stuck. I gave a drasha a few months ago, whenever it was, in shul. The Mishnah says in Pirkei Avos, in Ethics of the Fathers, it says, a very famous Mishnah, Eizahu Chacham, who's a wise person? Alomed mikol adam, right? Who learns from everybody else. So how do you learn from everybody else? You watch their actions. You find things in your own character that you don't like, and by watching other people who do things that I wish I was like that. Then you change your own actions, copying them. That's how you do it. And I gave a drasha in shul about this very topic, about blaming other people for all the ills that we have. Oh, this happened because, I don't know, this, he stole my money and he did this, and, and therefore, and I was born in Manchester, and therefore and I didn't have a good school or whatever, I went to Jewish grammar and I didn't taught anything, right? Or, you can pick your excuse. And I said, the best example of this is of people who for years and years and years have blamed their ills on everyone else. It's the Arabs. The Arab world professionals at blaming Jews. There was a joke about it. How many Arabs does it take to change a light bulb? None. They'll sit in the dark and blame it on Israel, right? So that's the thing. I know. But then a few months ago, the guys in the Emirates decided, do you know what? We don't want to do that anymore. We actually want to have something that is good in our lives. And instead of sitting around and moaning about how our situation is so bad, and we haven't got this, and it was all the Jews' fault. They haven't got this, it's America's fault. Actually, we're gonna take a step. We're gonna make peace, and we're gonna reap the benefits of it. And look, I mean, I think the trade between the non-military trade between Israel and Abu Dhabi last year was $300,000, and they said this year it's going to be 300 million. And they'll get the benefit from it. They will get the benefits from putting their ideas aside and saying, do you know what? Yes, I have got things that I'm upset about, but I'm not going to allow those things to rule me. I'm not going to allow those things to rule my life. I'm going to actually make an effort to do something. And I got up in shul and I said, kol hakavod to the Arabs. Kol hakavod, they did it. These people in the Emirates, they actually did something. They actually took the stock of their situation. They wanted to know, they wanted to have a better situation, and they did something about it. And we have to learn to do the same thing in our own lives. So if we sit around saying, oh, you know what, my nature tells me, I'm genetically predisposed to being a Rasha. Well, good luck. Don't do something about it. Go and change it. Or you say that my father taught me how to do this, and I'm stuck. My father molded me into this. It doesn't work like that. We are able to change ourselves. That's the whole point of being a human being. We have responsibilities, and the Torah tells us it's all there in the Torah. I didn't show you anything, midrashic. I didn't show you anything Kabbalistic. Nothing. There's nothing. Everything is all in the Torah. Now that's what we say. The Torah is everywhere. Everything is there. Everything is there if you want to find it. You just have to look hard enough. And we have so many resources now that we're able to use. So if I would tell you one thing to do, is to use your time wisely and to use your time to make yourself better in whatever it is that you want to do. Make yourself a better person. Be kinder. Be more learned. Try and improve yourself in every single way. And if you do that, then when you get before the Almighty at the end of time, then you won't have any dodgy questions for you. You'll be able to say, I did my best. I was able to do it. So there you go. Thank you very much for having me. I'm sorry for the delay on the other side of the world, and I just hope that everyone is safe and everyone looks after themselves, and Hashem should give everybody refuah shalema, those who are sick and those who are suffering with their businesses, that they should be uplifted, and everyone who needs help should be able to get help. And please God, everything should go well. Hashem should bless you all and bless all of us as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Rav Danny.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Daniel.
you. Thank you. Very interesting. All the best.